This is Anarchast.
Hey peaceful people, welcome to another edition of Anarchast, your home for anarchy on the internet. I have coming in from Boca, I was going to say Boca Chica, that's a place in Acapulco where I am, just called Boca, California, and his name's Orion Martin, and we met last year at Libertopia, and he had a great idea for a new app, which has now come into fruition, and we're going to talk all about it because what it is, it's called Sidekik. We'll get it all into what it does, but essentially when you get pulled over by the cops, it helps you to survive your meeting with those people in fancy blue uniforms with magic badges and try to survive it. And this is even more in the news nowadays, thanks to many different things, including we just had Rob Hustle on recently with his video, This is what happens when you call the cops. Just in the last week or two, we've seen what's going on in Ferguson, Missouri. And of course, every day on the internet, we see horrible situations where people get attacked by police in one way or another. And so his app that he's in the process of building is something that I think is really interesting. And so we're going to talk a lot about that. But of course, before we get into that, I have to check your credentials, check your street juice. So Orion Martin, how did you become an anarchist?
Well, the catalyst which set me on the path to the philosophy of anarchy occurred on the night of the 17th of March, 2006, when I saw the documentary Loose Change. So I watched and researched everything I could about 9/11, and after that I moved on to every other topic that I could get my hands on, from the monetary system to law, and eventually I came across the topic of critical thinking, and I read everything on the website criticalthinking.org. And for those who don't know, critical thinking is the examination of one's own thought process to eliminate errors in reasoning. And around the same time, I also read Professor Carroll Quigley's book, Evolution of Civilizations, in which he clearly makes the case for why society and the state are, or at least should be, independent of each other. So those two things coming to fruition at the same time led me to realize that the minarchist position, which is what I held at the time, was inherently flawed. And the only word that I knew at the time for existing without a state or without a ruler was voluntarism. And it wasn't until I came across your show, pretty much when it first started, that I realized that voluntarism and anarchism are synonymous. So that's how I arrived where I am today.
Wow, great story. I always like to hear these. They're always different. In your case, Loose Change, which really started to open my eyes as well. And of course, we've had Luke Rudowski on. He was on our 100th episode of Anarchast. And he was telling us about how he got all involved into all of that, and he was one of the people involved in Loose Change, and that really did, the first thing that sort of opened my eyes was actually a person named Doug Casey, and then I moved on to read things like The Creature from Jekyll Island, which described how the central banking system works. But then one of the things that really started to open my eyes about what's really going on was Loose Change, and other people like it who had been investigating 9/11 for years, and just all the obvious false things to do with 9/11. It just became obvious that the things that were told by the government and the media in general are just not possible. And so then you start to go down a very deep rabbit hole. So it's great to hear that you've come down this far, and you're now an anarchist. Let's get right into talking about the app, because I think it's so exciting, and you're such a great promoter of it, because you're excited about it as well. Why don't you tell us where you got the idea and what prompted you to start doing this?
Well, the idea came to me in late 2008. It all really started when a friend of mine was savagely beaten by 3 police officers in Concord, California. And I mean, it was the whole 9 yards. They smashed in his windows, punched him, kicked him, beat him with batons, just tased him over and over again. And when it was over, he was laying on the ground. He was still conscious, and he overheard the officers, and they were concerned that their criminal assault had been somehow recorded. So they ransacked his truck, and they were looking for a video camera, an audio recorder, a cell phone that had been set to record anything. And they didn't find anything, and there wasn't. And so they figured they were in the clear. And then they followed standard police procedure, which is to charge their victim with assaulting police officers and resisting arrest. And I was at his trial. And in the end, it didn't matter that all the physical evidence showed that the police were the ones who had assaulted him. It didn't matter that the testimony of the officers was conflicting. They couldn't keep their stories straight. And it didn't matter that the officers admitted that he had not committed a traffic violation to be pulled over in the first place. None of it really mattered. In the end, all the assistant DA had to do was stand up, point at my friend during closing arguments, and tell the jury, this man does not respect authority. And they found him guilty, and he was sentenced to a year in jail. And so after that, I just asked myself the question, how could this have been avoided? How could the decision of these jurors have been altered? And I thought, well, if he had had a recording device, would that have changed anything? And it wouldn't have, because the police would have found it and then destroyed the evidence. So then I realized, okay, well, what if he'd had a recording device, but the data had been streamed as it was recorded to a secure server or his home computer or whatever. And for him, that would have been okay, because he knew the law pretty well, and he would have been able to hold up. And the beating, not only would the ruling in the court would have been different, because the jurors would have seen the evidence of what actually happened, but he probably never would have been beaten in the first place. But I thought, could this really be used on a national level? I mean, would that be enough to keep incidents like this from happening to the general public, who largely don't know their rights? And I realized it wouldn't, because most people don't have the presence of mind to stand up to police intimidation when it's right in their face. And I realized that what's required is a third party who does know the law and know the code sections that apply to what the officers can and can't do during their interactions with the public, who could interact with the officers on behalf of the app user. And that's really an attorney, right? Because they're the only ones who can legally represent somebody in the United States. But video call technology had just come out, and I didn't come across it until a couple of years later. And once I did, I just made the connection and saw that if these two app features were combined, then pretty much every traffic stop, I mean, I'm sure that in some instances it would still devolve into violence. An officer would just ignore the audio recording and ignore the audio-video recording and ignore the attorney. But I realized that in most cases it would completely de-escalate the situation. So, but I wasn't in the right place or the right situation to be able to begin work on bringing that app to the public, and that didn't happen until April of 2013, when I just began work full-time on that. And I did research into patents, and I realized that there were two men not that far away from me, only about 3 hours away in the San Francisco Bay Area, who had already filed a patent on that same thing, but they hadn't been able to bring it to market. So I contacted them, we met up, and we realized that working together, we would have a much better chance of bringing an app like that to market. And it was just a few months later that I went down to Libertopia in 2013 and ran into you. And I was still finishing the business plan and financial model with a business plan company called Growth Inc. out of LA. And after that, I just began looking for investors. And after 6 months of trying to find investment and it not working out, I said, this needs to get out to the public as soon as possible. And so I just began work on building a crowdfunding campaign, and that just launched this last Monday, a few days ago.
That's great. And yeah, the stories that you hear and the interactions people have with the police, and if they had a camera there, it would help immensely. But like you said, if they're not streaming it somewhere, we just saw actually last week, it was a Al Jazeera news crew in Ferguson, Missouri, and the police hit them with bullets, plastic bullets, which are just bullets covered with plastic, by the way. They
Right.
by all accounts, they really hurt and can kill, I believe. they tear gassed them and tore down their set. And then the Al Jazeera people went to a different location, and one cop chased after him. And this is all, there's a video of it. I've just posted in the Dollar Vigilante blog a few days ago. The cop said, if you guys don't leave, I'm going to bash your head in, or something to that effect. And the Al Jazeera guy said, we're filming all this. And he said, and I'll just take all of your equipment as evidence and you'll never see it again. Mm-hmm. And that was all on film. And that, you can actually see that. I mean, we might try to put a link to that down below if people don't believe me. That's the case. So you're totally correct. And this app comes out of a market need. And there's a dire market need for this right now because of the actions of the police in the U.S. turning into almost a completely militaristic police state where there really is no rights or laws anymore. They essentially do what they want if you don't have a camera or at least witnesses and that sort of a thing. And then you pointed out, on top of that, they don't even seem to care about the cameras that much anymore because they know they can even get around that. And so the beautiful thing about your app that I really love, it'd be just so cool. And so anarchists out there, you gotta pay attention to this. This is amazing. So let's say you have your iPhone or your Samsung Galaxy or whatever it is, and you have your 4G connection. Hopefully you do. If you live in the US, it's sort of a third world country, you might have 3G or something like that, or it doesn't work very well. But as soon as you get pulled over, and this happens to everybody almost every few weeks in the US nowadays, especially younger people. Hit the app, and I'll let Ryan describe exactly how it works, but essentially when the police officer walks up, you already have on your phone your lawyer. So when the cop comes up, you just go, speak to my lawyer. And so take it from there, Ryan, but I love the idea.
So the first thing that the app user would need to know is that the attorney is basically just going to ask them, what kind of situation are you in? And that's really all you need to do is tell them, I've been pulled over, or hey, I'm on the sidewalk and I've been accosted by a police officer. And then the attorney will tell you to be quiet. As one defense attorney told me, most of my clients talk themselves into jail, right? And so it's also important for people to understand that everybody has a right to legal representation at every stage of an interaction with police. So what happens when a person activates the Sidekik app is it'll do two things. One, it will turn on the audio and video recording devices on the user's smartphone and begin streaming that data as it's recorded to a secure server, actually multiple secure servers. At the same time, it will initiate a video phone call to a nationwide attorney network, so that within a few seconds of activating the app, the user will be seeing and speaking in real time to an attorney who will represent them in that situation. And all they have to do at that point is hold the phone up, and the attorney will be speaking to the officer. And all the evidence, right, the audio video record, including GPS data of the entire encounter, is recorded, and there is nothing the officer can do about it. They can take the phone and smash it to bits, and there will be video of a boot coming down on the phone, and that's it for the officer. And how this deals with the police state is on two levels, individually and communally. So on an individual level, what it does is it helps protect an individual's rights when they have an encounter with police, right? So they have the evidence of that encounter. Did you say something?
No, sir. I got a bunch of little 2-year-old changos, as I call them, running around. I was just trying to tell them to stop banging on my door.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So individually, on an individual level, it'll help protect that person's rights during that encounter. And on a communal level, it helps stop the police state by using the only tool that has been shown to affect the behavior of police, and that's money. The best example of this is Maywood, California, at least as far as I can tell. So in early June of 2010, the city of Maywood received a notification from their insurance carrier that their coverage was being canceled. There were several reasons listed, but the primary reason given was the excessive number of claims against the Maywood Police Department. So the city council went out and they contacted a number of insurance companies to try and get coverage. And they couldn't, because each time they went to a new carrier, the carrier would take one look at the number of claims against the police department and turn them down. They figured that it was just simply too risky to cover the city. And it got to the point that one councilman, Felipe Aguirre, told the LA Times, "No one will insure us, not as long as we have the police department." And the reason that this is an issue is that cities require insurance to operate. So the city council was faced with a choice: either disband the police department or the entire city government would be dissolved, which means they would lose their jobs. So they want to keep their jobs. So they made the only choice they could make. And on June 30th of 2010, about a month after they got the notice, the entire 60-member Maywood Police Department was fired. And the city then contracted out for law enforcement to the county. So what this means is that once the use of Sidekik becomes widespread, police departments across the United States will have a choice: either change the way they do business or go out of business.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love it. The entire police force fired. Unfortunately, we still do have police, and unfortunately, we still have government. We have to deal with that, and that's, you're basically a narco-capitalist in this moment in time. You're taking advantage of problems brought on by the state to make some money and to actually create some value and offer people solutions, and I think it's great. And I've seen in the last just few weeks alone, there's been a few other apps that have come out. There's one called Peacekeeper. These apps are quite a bit different than what you're trying to do. They have no legal aspect to it at all, but they have a similar sort of a thing where if you get pulled over by the cops, you use these sort of apps. One's called Peacekeeper. I don't know anything about that, but apparently they're trying to contact me, and they are anarchists, and so I might be talking to them soon. Another one just came out of actually Ferguson, Missouri. Some people designed an app called 5-0 using the local street language there. 5-0 means police in that language, and apparently it just helps you to if you get accosted by the cops, to have some options. So there is definitely a market need out there, and your solution, I just love it. Me personally, if I'm in the U.S., I would love to have this app. I would love to just, show them this lawyer on the screen and go, yeah, I'm not talking to you, talk to my lawyer. Yeah, because I know from personal experience, many times in the U.S. and actually other countries, but the U.S. is always the worst that I've ever been, that if one of the things you bring up is just a lawyer, they almost immediately sort of calm down a bit, because they realize, because what they're hoping is that you're just some typical slave who doesn't know anything, and they're just going to have some fun with you, kick you around, maybe try to steal your stuff, try to extort you for money through tickets or whatever. But if you bring up a lawyer, because a lot of the people they go after are usually fairly poor, and they don't have lawyers because lawyers are fairly expensive. And so I've noticed that a few times. I've been in handcuffs in the U.S. and I bring up, talk to my lawyer, and they start to calm down a bit. And then, of course, if I had a camera there at the same time recording, that would de-escalate the situation as well. So I think it's an amazing app, and I think people, especially in the anarchist community and well beyond, I think everybody in the U.S. should be wanting to have something like this. And it's a great business model you've come up with it, and now you're trying to raise money for it. And I was just looking at your Kickstarter page. I really like the approach, because essentially if you donate a decent amount of money, I forget the exact amount, and Orion can fill us in, but you can get, once the app is built, a certain amount of service for free, like a year of service for free or 2 years of service for free or whatever it is. And so you're essentially just paying ahead of time for this service, and then you're going to actually make, by doing this, the application come into fruition. So it's a great business model, totally anarchic, totally agorist. There's, the market is creating these options all on its own through the internet. So why don't you tell us exactly what's involved with the Kickstarter and what people can expect?
Well, first, it's not on Kickstarter, it's on Indiegogo.
Oh, sorry. I think that's just almost like Kleenex nowadays, to use that term. But yeah, some sort of crowdfunding site. Right.
Yeah, Kickstarter is kind of the default term that people use for crowdfunding, and understandably, they were the first major platform for it. But it's on Indiegogo. And what I did when I was designing the perks is I took what we were estimating to be the yearly amount for a subscription, which we're estimating to be roughly $60. We haven't completely decided on that, but it comes out to about $5 a month, which is about the amount of a basic Netflix subscription, right? And what that does is that would give the user 12 uses of Sidekik within that year-long period. And I took that and then I discounted it. So, and then I built tiers of perks that people would get for their contribution, so that somebody looking at it could donate and actually get a discounted subscription for Sidekik, while at the same time funding the creation of the app that they're getting a subscription for. And I think that the really novel aspect of Sidekik is that it's the first nonviolent, practical solution to the police state. So the other apps are great. They're definitely moving in the right direction, and they're basically evidence apps, right? They almost all of them have the same basic feature of streaming audio and video to either someone's cloud account or their own, home computer if they have a static IP address, something like that. But at the same time, that doesn't really, it's not really a solution. I mean, you have evidence, but the fact is that police only respond, they only alter their behavior in response to three things, and that's bullets, jail, and money, right? And the first two are impractical. So if you shoot back at a cop aggressing at you, you are either going to be killed yourself or, best case scenario, spend the rest of your life in jail. And throwing them in jail is nearly impossible because the system is designed to keep police out of jail regardless of what they do, whether it's robbery, beating, rape, or even outright murder. But the last one, money, does actually alter their behavior. And there are many more instances, other than just Maywood, California, of police departments being disbanded or having their premiums jacked up by their insurance companies to the point where they either need to alter the way that they police, or they won't even be able to afford their premiums anymore. So Sidekik is really the first nonviolent solution to the police state, and it's an actual solution. And so if enough people are using Sidekik in a given jurisdiction, then the lawsuits will begin mounting up. And the department's insurance carrier takes note of this. And they basically have everything built off algorithms. It's like the ending of George Lucas's film THX 1138. I don't know if you've seen that or not.
No.
But it all comes down, I'm going to spoil it. Hey, come on, it was made back in the 60s if you haven't seen it by now.
Yeah, if you haven't seen it yet.
Yeah. But basically, Robert Duvall's character is being chased by a goon from the government police that he's been living under his whole life, and they have a central computer system that's basically running the numbers, and it's deciding at what point it's going to cost them more to actually chase this guy down, and eventually it reaches this point where it says, okay, stop chasing him. Right? So insurance companies have this same type of algorithm. They look at it and they say, at what point will the number of lawsuits filed against this police department make it so it's too risky for us to cover them? And it's actually not that many lawsuits. And it doesn't need to be lawsuits that have actually been settled. It's really about just the number of claims. So that's really the innovation of the Sidekik. And the app will be free to download for iOS and Android. And even if someone doesn't want to get a subscription, they can still use a pay-as-you-go service. Right? So if they think, well, I probably won't need it, so I'm not going to get a subscription. As long as they download it and they have money in their iTunes account, or they have a credit card or debit card on file, then and they've installed it on their phone, then they can just activate the app and click pay as you go. I mean, they're going to get charged, obviously, more than the monthly fee, but they'll have that service when they need it.
That's great. Another great revenue business model. I think that's great because some people will be, like you said, I haven't been pulled over in years. I'm like a 60-year-old woman who just leaves my house and goes and plays gin rummy at the old folks home or something once a week. Not necessarily 60, 80, 90 now, getting different ages. 60 is the new 40. But yeah, that's great for people like that. If I lived in the U.S. and if I had children that were of the age where they can drive, because that's really where it gets dangerous. That's really where they nail a lot of people, is in cars. I would definitely have a subscription to this. I would consider it part of my insurance, just as sort of as an expenditure, as a part of my insurance, of just making sure that my kids have every opportunity to survive out there in a very dangerous world, especially in the U.S. So yeah, I just love it. I love the concept. I really hope this gets done. I think it will do. I think it will. I think this with what's going on in the U.S., you're going to have so many marketing opportunities. I want to get it out there. Anyone else out there, the guys from Cop Block, you guys got to get on this. Get this spread out. Have this information on. Have Orion on. Interview him. Get it out there, because I'd like to see every anarchist and actually everybody in the U.S. have this app on their phone, and I'd love to see every single check stop, every single every time someone's pulled over, you can just see the cop looking all sad because he's talking into a phone to a lawyer and kind of going, yeah, okay, yeah, you're right, or yeah, we're gonna let him go, or something like that. It could be just beautiful, and this is how technology, and all peaceful again. This is another great thing about our philosophy, is that we are peaceful people. We do not initiate violence, and we are being aggressed against. And so some anarchists can say, people like Chris Cantwell and many others, and I've had Chris on my show, that they are aggressing against us, so we can use violence. But Orion pointed out, if you do that, it's pretty much a death sentence if you do that against the cops. So you're essentially committing suicide. If you want to commit suicide, go ahead, that's your option. But I think there's better ways. We can actually solve this without any violence whatsoever. Which is perfect, because, of course, as anarchists, if we're out there doing violence, it really doesn't help our cause. It doesn't help our philosophy. If people go, well, I've seen a million anarchists that are always beating people up. It's like, yeah, well, they're not going to listen to our philosophy too much, even if they were aggressed against. So let's wrap this up, Orion. And why don't you, if you have any final comments, please go ahead, and then let people know where they can get more information on this app and any other information you want them to know about.
Okay, well, first I just want to talk about Chris Cantwell. I've watched his interviews on Anarchast and Adam versus the Man, and his solution is, it's morally sound, right, to defend yourself against someone aggressing against you. But he's the first one to say that it's not actually a good idea. He says in interviews, he'll say, this is actually not a good idea, and if somebody else can come up with a better one, I'm all for it. And this is the better idea. It's nonviolent and it's actually practical. So in terms of getting Sidekik funded, it's really about getting media coverage. So the day that we launched, it was picked up by Activist Post. They wrote an article on it, and that was picked up by a number of other websites. I submitted an article to Cop Block several days ago. They haven't posted it yet. Hopefully they'll post it soon. And then, of course, this interview with you on Anarchast. So if this gets out to enough people and we get enough media coverage, then I have no doubt that we'll get funded. And I hope that happens soon, because I really want to get this app developed and released to the public as soon as possible.
Yeah, totally. And everybody at the freest state, New Hampshire, who I see on Facebook is getting pulled over all the time, and in many instances too as well, they're actually going out and doing things like cop blocking and getting involved, doing activism, non-violent activism, and then they get accosted by the police. Every single one of those people should be very interested in this app. Spread it around, put it on your Facebook page, let people know once this video is up, which once you're seeing it will be up, spread this video and tell people that, especially anyone who's had problems with police, and that's pretty much everybody nowadays in the U.S., and just let them know this is how we can get this fixed, and very easily. And many of these crowdfunding things can go very quickly once enough people know about it, and very quickly it can get up and running. What would be what amount of money are you trying to raise, and what would be the time frame to get it finished?
Well, we're looking to raise $250,000, and I know it is a large amount of money, but it's actually a very complicated app. It's several complicated apps put into one app. And we have, I believe, 35 days left on the crowdfunding campaign. And I guess what I really want to impress upon the viewers is that contributing to the campaign isn't just kind of throwing your money away. You're actually buying discounted subscriptions to Sidekik, as well as helping create Sidekik in the first place.
Yeah, that's great. And did you give us the URL? I don't remember if you did.
Oh, no, I didn't. So the website is sidekik.co, and Sidekik, K-I-C-K, was already taken, so we had to go with K-I-K. So it's sidekik.co. And if you just type in Sidekik App on YouTube, you'll see our video, and it's the icon. It's a circle with a hand raised up, holding a smartphone in the scales of justice. And then if you just type in Sidekik on the Indiegogo search page, you'll see our campaign, I believe, on the second level down. Not the second page, but just the second row of projects.
Great. And I just, off the top of my head, I just thought of one thing. Do you need any help building the app from perhaps anarchists who wouldn't mind pro bono or are doing it a lot cheaper than your average app programmer would do if they are qualified?
If they're qualified, then yes, we could definitely use their help. But we've actually already contracted with one of the best app companies, not just in America, but in the world. It's Zico Corporation. And they are really, really good. So anybody who wants to make sure, okay, is the app company that Sidekik's going to be using to develop their product actually good? Are they going to develop a quality product? By all means, just go look up Zico Corporation. That's just ZCO Corporation. And you can look at their products and you can see that they're a top-notch app firm. And but yes, if there's anybody who's qualified at writing code who would like to contribute in some way, or at least with ideas on how to further improve the app, then by all means, you can contact me at info@sidekik.co or at my personal email address for Sidekik, which is omartin@sidekik.co. And one more thing I want to cover before we end the interview is just the other features that Sidekik's going to include. So I've mainly been focusing on the two features of data streaming and legal representation. But Sidekik is also going to incorporate many of the features that you're seeing on the apps that are coming out now. So, for example, the 5.0 app streams data to a website where people can view these events live and comment on it. Sidekik will have a feature like that. So any Sidekik user who wants their encounter to be publicized, when they activate the app, it will stream that audio, video, as well as the GPS data to a website that anybody can go to, and they'll be able to just see windows popping up constantly, and there'll be live encounters between an attorney and a police officer, and they'll be able to witness this exchange live and comment on it.
Yeah, amazing. This has to get done. So please share it. Share this video. Subscribe to our channel so we can get bigger audience. Let's get this stuff going. I hope the next time I go to PorcFest and I see people getting pulled over all over the place, all I see is the glow of their phone and a police officer walking away going, God damn it. These are the ways we can change the world. And I've been talking about this for a while, and Orion's one of them. So definitely support it. And as for me, I'm here in Acapulco. By the time this video is live, we should have announced that we are going to host Anarchapulco here in Acapulco in February 27th to March 1st. We're going to have a lot of anarchists, anarcho-capitalists down here. It's going to be a one-of-a-kind conference. You're going to be hearing a lot about that, so check that out, and we'll have the link to that down below. So I'd like to thank Orion, a really great, really cool guy, by the way. I met him. I really enjoyed meeting him. Really smart, and let's get this done. I want to see this happen. So that's it for Anarchast, your home for anarchy on the internet. Peace, love, and anarchy.
This is Anarchast.